Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Fan Experience Podcast. We are starting week 15. Can you believe it, Rick?
Unbelievable.
Week 15 of the Fan Experience Podcast. It's been a great ride thus far. We got a great guest for you in store tonight. Got a great guest in store for you on Thursday. So we're very excited to welcome these two next guests this week. As always, I am your host, Mike Kados. Alongside me is my co-host, Rick Molina. Rick, how are we doing tonight?
We're doing good tonight. We got a Game 6 in the World Series. We got some NFL to get to. So, it's a good time to get started, man. So let's roll.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, let's touch on the World Series first. It's been a back and forth affair.
It has.
It was eye for an eye. Dodgers took game one, then the Rays, and it's so on and so forth. It's just 1-1. And now, the Dodgers are in the position to close this thing out tonight, but the Rays have other ideas. They want to stave off elimination. They're up 1-0 right now. I mean, it's only the second inning. There's plenty of baseball left to be played. But do we think that the Rays can stave off elimination for one more night? Let's see. That's why you play the game, right?
That's right, man. It's funny. These Rays they're just a feisty team, man. They don't quit. They don't give up. They're young. They got some pitching, but you can never, it's like you can't get rid of them, man. They just keep hanging around, and they're up 1-0. They got Blake Snell on the mound. And I got to tell you, man, I picked the Dodgers in 5. Clearly they have more experience. They have more talent, but the more the Rays hang around, man, you get that that funny feeling that they might just push this to a Game 7 and pull this thing out. So we'll see. We got a long ways to go. We're in the third inning right now, but it's been a fun series to watch so far, having these Rays in the World Series. And it's good. It's good for these small market teams to get in there. They're feisty. They play a different kind of baseball. They're a little more creative with their lineups. And, I think it's been good for baseball. So we'll wait and see what happens tonight. A shout out to our friend Danielle Lugo from Up to Us Sports. Danielle's a big Dodger fan, so I know she's hoping her team closes it out tonight, has another celebration of another championship out there in L.A. So, Danielle, wish you all the best of luck. But what are you thinking, Mike? You think we close it out? The Dodgers close it out tonight?
Well, I do like the Dodgers. Obviously, being a Mets fan, I'm always for those National League teams. That didn't like Chase Utley a few years ago when
breaking legs at second base
when he did what he did. But I never liked Chase Utley to begin with. But the Mets blue came from the Dodgers, so I have no love. No hate for the Dodgers. It's just if it's going to come down to the Mets Dodgers, it's always going to be Mets. But so I think that they can close it out. They have the firepower to do so. It's just like you said, the Rays are a feisty team, and you know what is going on with LA and Florida? I mean, Tampa Bay. The Heat. The Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup. LA and Florida are just running shit this season.
It's the beach cities, man.
And the two worst COVID hotspots are the ones that produce the monster teams and championship teams. But you know what? Like you said, this is good for baseball. I've always been a fan of the underdog. There's a lot of people that say, hey, you can't root for a big market team. I like the Dodgers only because of their history and the fact that they came from New York, obviously. So as long as they're not the Yankees, I just that's the only one I can't.
Yankees got their own issues they got to straighten out over there. But no, you're right. It's funny. It is it's the battle of the coast, man. The battle of the beach cities. Miami, you got the Heat going to the NBA Finals. Tampa Bay going to a World Series. The Lightning winning a Stanley Cup, and out in LA. You got, and then also you got the Tua Tagovailoa. He's starting over there, and the Dolphins are getting better down there too. So and then the Bucks down there lighting it up, ready to go to the Super Bowl. The way they, they just signed Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown
on a 1-year deal, so it's incredible. And out there in LA, obviously with the Dodgers, you got the Lakers and LeBron James winning out there. The Rams just went to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. So it's a lot going on in these two cities. Wouldn't be surprised if we see this continuing for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But you're right, man. You can two of the greatest cities to be in, Miami, LA, your sports teams are doing well. beaches, beautiful weather. I mean, what more can anybody ask for?
Yeah, and not to mention the Super Bowl's being played in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
this year. So, hey, Florida's got
Florida's like Raymond James Stadium.
Everything's going on over there. Our next guest is actually from Florida as well.
Yeah.
But let's let's touch quickly on week 7 of the NFL, and then get to our ad read real quick before we bring on our guests. So week 7, another great weekend of football. Odell Beckham went down for the season, it looks like. So that was rough. But, and the Jets almost had a chance. They got the hit. Well, you know what? Let's just show everybody the highlights really quick.
Yeah, let's show the highlights of the
Jets. So, like I said, wonderful game by the New York
Jets. Our beloved Jets, look, I don't know what Adam Gase gives up the play calling, gives it to Darryl, what's his name? Darryl Loggins. And in the first half, man, they came out well. They had some first downs. They scored a touchdown. LaMichael Pirine scored a touchdown. Wendell Mims.
Nice.
He looked like a player out there.
Yeah, no, he did.
And, they look good. And in the second half, Buffalo adjusted, and the Jets did it. And basically, Buffalo said, "Look, these guys can't pick up a blitz. We're going to just blitz them till they can't cover it anymore." And they just total of 4 yards of total offense in the second half, which was just, that's unacceptable. Look, we all know Adam Gase's days are numbered, and so it's just a matter of who you're going to bring in here to get a coach. But what I did want to get into, Mike, is what happened in that game in Atlanta, where Todd Gurley decides to score a touchdown, going in for the win, giving Detroit that
that glimmer of hope.
That glimmer of hope, and they come back and win the game. They pretty much saved Matt Patricia's job, I think, on that one. I mean, it's just incredible what happens to Atlanta. They get these leads, and they just completely collapse. And since the Super Bowl, whatever, it's either like a spell or something. I don't know what's going on down in Atlanta, but they cannot win a game. Like, they can't win a big game, or they can't hold a big lead. And kudos to the Lions for pulling this one out, but you just can't. It's incredible what's happened to the Falcons since that loss to the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, what can you say anymore? I just, you just can't. I have a lot more I want to talk about with week 7 and recapping in some of the marquee games. But let's get our ad read in there, and also then we're going to bring on our guest. So the support for the fan experience is brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels.
Yeah, Mike, especially during quarantine, man, you just nowhere to go. You're trapped in your house. All of a sudden, it's just like a bushel down there, and you're just hacking away, and you don't know what to do. No other choice but to reach out to Manscaped and get the new trimmer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Manscaped, was kind enough to send us the perfect package to us. Comes with this, this amazing trimmer, the amazing electric trimmer, and it's engineered to be the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created. And they just released this version, which is the Lawnmower 3.0. And the third generation trimmer also features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents.
No, you're 100%, Mike. And when I tell you that this is premium, it's just premium. The battery lasts up to 90 minutes longer, so you can take a longer shave. It's waterproof technology, so if you want to take it into the shower, you can go ahead and just do all you need to do. Yeah,
and they also, hook you up with some Crop Preserver, which is ball deodorant, anti-chafing ball deodorant. And it's awesome, by the way. And then they got the Crop Reviver, which is ball toner. And, it's just, it's amazing products. And, I can't speak highly enough about them. So if you're listening to us speak right now, we just want to have you experience it firsthand for yourself. let's get that bush to tush clean. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code FANEXPERIENCE at manscaped.com. It's time to make your testes their besties.
Yeah, again, you get 20% off free shipping with the code FANEXPERIENCE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off free shipping at manscaped.com and use code FANEXPERIENCE. Your balls will thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again, Manscaped,
for
supporting the program. And we will be bringing on our next guest. Now joining us is Bob Malandro. He is the managing partner for Whitecap Sports Group. Bob, how we doing tonight?
Very good, gentlemen. That ad read is a tough act to follow. Well done.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. So, we like to, get it started with, diving deep back, far back. Where did it all start for you? Where did your love for sports start, and what were those like iconic moments that really got you hooked?
Yeah, well, I've not been asked this often, but I have told this story before. My sports fandom was a product of mockery, if you could believe this. And when I was a very young child, I had an uncle that would always tease me, and he would call me Roberto Clemente. Whenever he saw me, he'd say, Roberto Clemente, Roberto Clemente. I was like 4 years old. I had no idea who Roberto Clemente was. But to my credit, and without the benefit of the internet, I somehow pieced this together. And somewhere around 5, 6 years old, I came back to him one day and said, I know exactly who Roberto Clemente is. And he said, who? And I said, a right fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And, then he started taking me to baseball games. The whole world opened up after that. So I guess it was a test at an early age, but that's probably where it began. And then shortly thereafter, I remember probably more vividly than I should going to what they would have called Bat Day. I don't think they do it anymore at Yankee Stadium many, many years ago. And that was like my first vivid memory of being at a ball game. But, I was hooked. And, ever since then, whether it was me personally or sharing it with my sons, sports, ball games, stadiums, arenas have just always been a staple of our leisure time. And it's obviously a great experience to share.
Yeah. And it's really what it's all about. It's those experiences that just stick with you, that you could just never forget them. And it just, stays in your, stays in your mind and everything. So you're a Yankees. So you're struggling Jets and Knicks fan like us. How'd you like the Jets highlights? Did you catch those?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was spot on. That was, we have I'll let the cat out of the bag. I don't think anybody in my office will see this before tomorrow. But we have a little Halloween party here. And, of course, it's a sports theme. We're a sports company, and everybody's got to come in some sports-themed outfit. And I have to say, I think I have the best one, and that is to put all my Jets swag on, but with the infamous bag over my head, with the eyes cut out, and an 0-7 and counting written on the front. I love the Jets, don't get me wrong, but they're taking it to another level of futility this year, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's pretty bad. But Bob, you are also an avid Yankees fan, and you grew up around the time of when the Bronx was burning, the 77, 78 right. Yankees, Reggie Jackson, Thurman Munson, Billy Martin. Tell our viewers about that. What was that experience like?
That is almost impossible to imagine in today's world. The way the Yankees would just capture what they would call back then the back page, which was the sports page. Kids today don't know what a page is, obviously. Or, on an app maybe, but back then that's how you got your information, right? You either saw it yourself or you read about it. And the Yankees had so much drama going on. I mean, there's been many books written about it. Greg Nettles, I think it was Nettles, wrote the book called The Bronx Zoo, kind of chronicling all of this. But they had such a cast of characters. But aside from that, they were really good. I mean, if you look at the players on the 76 through 78 New York Yankees, I mean, it's a who's who. They're not all in the Hall of Fame, but a lot of them are. And obviously, they won 2 consecutive championships. They were in the World Series in 76, but the Big Red Machine was still in their heyday and swept them out. But that was, if you saw The Bronx is Burning, that little mini series a few years back.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that did a really good job of just showing you like how just every day now they, these players and managers and owners, they try to steer away from the controversy, right? If God forbid somebody says something, they tweet something, and then it's a firestorm. And back then it was like the opposite. It was almost like they were going out of their way to create controversy, almost for the sake of controversy. But you know what? They won, and winning solves a lot of problems.
Oh, absolutely. And then so you grew up in Manhattan. So you're born in Manhattan. I guess you grew up. Then you moved to Long Island. Then you come back to Manhattan, and then you end up in Florida. Now you have all the Tampa, Miami. You got the Lightning.
Crazy.
I mean, how do you balance it out? How are you still able to root for the New York teams and the Florida teams? I mean, do you have a feeling there?
Absolutely. Well, it's like you have your childhood friends, and when you're older, you get your adult friends, and you don't really give up your old friends. And my New York teams are like my old friends. So, I always root for them. They're always my default. So, when you mentioned Long Island, I lived on Long Island when the Islanders won their 4 Stanley Cups. So, that's never going to go away. And so I root very hard for those teams. But I like to think that my maturity level has developed a little bit so that if my teams do get bounced, I don't have a problem. Like when the Lightning bounced the Islanders, it irritated me, but I had no problem rooting for the Lightning to win the Stanley Cup. And, when the Rays beat the Yankees, that one stung too. Especially because they're division rivals. But it's not like as if the Red Sox beat them. That's a whole different world. And, I'm rooting for the Rays to beat the Dodgers. And because it's good for the town you live in, right? It's good for the economy. It's good for morale. Obviously, we're in a really unique time with COVID. It's not – you don't get the same pop from a team winning as you would if the games are being played live here. But I will tell you, Florida, for better or worse, is very open. So there's watch parties, bars, restaurants are open.
The
Lightning had an amazing parade up and down the river. And it's they've made the best of a very difficult situation.
Yeah, everyone has to try and make the best out of this, out of this situation right now. But I like what you said. Like your old teams are kind of like elementary school friends, and you're like, you're not gonna give them up. But as you grow and as you mature, there's just other things happens, and life gets a little bit more complicated, and you can't have everything your way. The Yankees can't win every single World Series. I mean, I'm a Mets fan, so I don't want them to.
I hear you. Well, I thought it'd be harder to root for Tom Brady, to be honest with you, because I hated him for 20 years. And miraculously, probably a product of the Jets' ineptness and the Buccaneers being very good this year, he's apparently not such a bad guy after all. And it's not all that difficult to root for them.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. And hey, but you know what? Brady leaves, and the Patriots all of a sudden just can't get out of their own way. I mean, Cam Newton ended up having to get sat and late in that game this past week. But yeah, Tom Brady is still putting up okay numbers, and now he's going to have Antonio Brown. So let's see, can the Tampa Bay actually play the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay? We will we'll have to wait and see about that. So I want to dive into what you got going on, what you do professionally. So you're a managing partner at Whitecap Sports Group. So tell us a little bit about what Whitecap is and what you do over there.
Yeah, Whitecap is a sports merger and acquisition firm, which is maybe a fancy way of saying we buy and sell pro sports teams. So we put clients into sports-related opportunities, and almost always that means team ownership. So if somebody wants to buy a minor league baseball team or a minor league hockey team, or they want to own a piece of an NBA team or an NFL team or an overseas soccer team, those are the deals we do. So I launched the firm here when I relocated to Tampa about 5 years ago, but I've been in this space for about 12, 13 years just doing the work for other companies. But our trajectory over the last 5 years has been phenomenal. We're really busy. And even in spite of a very difficult 2020 all around, we've been very fortunate.
Yeah, that is incredible. I wanted to get into that. How did you get started, like in the industry itself? I mean, I know you've been in it 12, 13 years, but how did it all start for you to get into this kind of industry? Because it's not an industry that is very like, that people know about or what have you. So how did it start for you?
Yeah, I think back, and I maybe a coconut fell on my head or something. It was a weird trajectory. Out of school, I worked on Wall Street, so I was in the financial markets for years as a financial advisor, where I kind of learned, economics and markets and investing and things of that nature. But I did that for a number of years, and then took a little bit of a kind of a detour. I don't want to call it a midlife crisis, but I briefly left that industry to kind of follow my passion. And my passion was sports, but not just sports, it was sports business. So ironically, I had read this book. I had picked it off. It's like, one of these things you remember like it's yesterday. I picked this book off a shelf back in like probably a Barnes & Noble. You can think that far back. And this had to be 12, 13, 14 years ago. And it was called Working at the Ballpark. I still have it in a bookcase here at my office. And it was all these little vignettes, these little stories from people that worked in sports. It could have been the groundskeeper at a stadium. It could be a radio announcer. It could be a general manager making trades. It really ran the gamut. It was probably 15, 20 different stories. And it really resonated with me because I was like, you know what? It's such a fascinating field. And we're all, I think a lot of us are very gravitated, towards it, for leisure purposes. But I was like, you can actually work and you can make money, you could be successful and enjoy what you do every day. So that was kind of the impetus to, I started working for a sports marketing firm in New York at that time. And they had just taken on some they basically had launched a new division where they were creating ancillary revenue streams for major league sports teams. And the first client was the Yankees. And so I worked in that division, learned a lot about team operations. And we subsequently did that with the Mets, the Islanders, the Red Sox. And then it kind of went, in different directions from there. So after that, I entered the field that I'm in, which is basically, like I said, sports mergers and acquisitions or sports investment banking. Mm-hmm. And I did that for a firm that specialized in doing this for minor league sports teams. So then I learned, that level of play, which quite honestly, you kind of have to understand the hierarchy and the pyramids to understand how it all connects. So kind of made my bones in the industry doing that, selling minor league hockey teams in the middle of Canada that you can't get to even with like 2 flights. And, did that for a while and did a lot of work in the NBA with the D-League back when those teams traded privately. And then ultimately got involved in other types of opportunities, larger ones, some sports capital raises. And then when I relocated to Tampa, I did what a lot of people do. I said, if you want to do something, right, you got to do it yourself. So I had very strong opinions on how to launch and run a firm like this. And I had the experience to do it. And that's why I did.
That's an incredible story.
That's great.
Yeah. And how do we're not going to get to names, but how do clients find you? I mean, is it word of mouth? I mean, obviously, I guess in an industry like this, you don't really cold call somebody. So how Correct. Is it that prospects say, hey, let me reach out to Bob and how do we go about this? Because it's not like every day people are buying like sports teams and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And we're not a highly transactional business. So, it's not like we do hundreds or thousands of transactions a year like a retail shop. If we do 10 or 8 in a given year, and that's a really good year, we're very happy. And but it is very reputational. It is very much relationship based. I always say we're not in the transaction business. We're in the relationship business. And I've been building up relationships for many, many years. And I do get a lot of business through referrals. And I get calls regularly from people who were referred to me by somebody else. And I won't get into some of those details, but There's been some tremendous success stories that have come out of that exact scenario.
Yeah. So that's amazing. I mean, down the line, we're thinking way down the line with playing the field. I want to put some money in on a sports team here and there, but we got to get there first. Mm-hmm. Yo, absolutely. You're going to be my first call. Are you kidding me? Right. So, I'm going to go out on a limb that you're probably not working the Steve Cohen deal. I'm sure he's got his own people up here, but give us like your take on, what's going on with this. Obviously it's a hot topic right here in New York.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't work that deal, but it would be one that we could be involved in. There's been, we had investors for the Marlins deal. We're not scaled to really do $2-3 billion deals as the lead firm, but could we bring investors that are going to write a $50, $100 million, $200 million check to those deals? Absolutely. We just didn't participate in that particular one. But I think by and large, not to pat myself on the back, I think this was probably a layup for all intents and purposes, but it looked pretty obvious to me early on that he was going to be the victor in that scenario. He had the most money, and whenever you read it's not about the money, ignore it. It's always about the money. And there are no such thing as preferred buyers. I don't care how many people say that, somebody has an in because they're preferred by, the Wilpons or MLB. It's not. You have the most money, the best credentials, you win. That's it. And pay the highest price, obviously.
Yeah.
You pay the highest price, you win. And that's what happened. So he had the best offer. He's got the capital, and he is going to get to the finish line.
Yeah. Money talks, bullshit walks, right?
Yeah.
Every time.
They say. I read one of the blogs that you guys put up on Whitecap Sports. It was like comparison between like the richest owners in the MLB, and Steve Cohen is just like light years ahead of the next closest. It was unbelievable. I didn't anticipate that. Like I know the guy had money, but that's a hefty gap there. So I definitely like that whole the outlook for our Mets going forward, because he might actually turn that team around.
Well, he's got the capacity to do it. Now what you have to hope for is that he wants to do it. Obviously, he wouldn't be doing this if he didn't want to build a winner.
Of course.
We all kind of know that. But that's a team that historically over the last several years was, don't quote me on this because it would not be, I'd be speaking out of school. Yeah. But rumors have it they were losing $50 or so million a year. And, what happens if you spend more money? So you say, oh, wow, he's going to come in and get, he's going to spend more money on payroll, more money on infrastructure, more money on technology. Well, guess what? You'll probably lose more money. But that's okay. He's, very, obviously very deep pocketed, but, there's a lot of owners, they're all billionaires. Do they all want to spend and make that kind of commitment towards winning? You don't know until you know. So you got to see, if he's going to deploy the capital consistently and over the long term. If he does that and he doesn't mind writing the check for the luxury tax or for whatever, however the payroll grows, then you're probably in great shape, because, it's rare that somebody will invest over time consistently and not build a winner. It has happened. You saw, the Angels did that for a number of years before Mike Trout even got there. Now they're spending money on him and they can't win. The Orioles had a really high payroll. They did make the playoffs briefly, like those couple of years in the mid '90s, but that was not sustainable. You saw Texas do it. It's hard to get there and stay there, and that's what you want with a big market team like the Mets, who have an owner with that type of capacity. Like, you should be in for a good run.
Yeah, that's I was going to say that's for the sake of the Met fan, let's hope so. But I want to get back to you for a minute, Bob. I saw on one of your podcasts that in your line of work, in your industry, building relationships and communication is important when it comes to your work. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how important is it to speak to your clients, to people within the sort of the terms of the deal, to make sort of things run smoothly and everything like that?
Yeah. Well, you have to understand that the people we're dealing with, whether it's the actual buyer or the seller, who are typically very high net worth people, right? So let's say, for argument's sake, they're billionaires or close to it, right? Yeah. So they're highly educated people. But a lot of times, those aren't the people you're talking to, right? You're talking to their attorneys, or you're talking to somebody who runs their family office. And so you have to be able to, communicate to a variety of different people in the process. And everyone has, I would say, a different, angle as to how they're coming at it. So the way you talk to an attorney who's representing a buyer might be very different than how you would talk to the seller, for argument's sake. So the communication is really critical. And I find like that's like a lost art. Like years and years ago, it's like everybody had it sounds ridiculous saying this. You had to be able to read and write and spell and all this stuff. And now it's like a lost art, right? Because we don't communicate in the deals I do. There's no texting. There's no emojis. There's no, there's no slang. Like, you have to be like really like astute and comprehensive in your communication and be very clear in order to, because even the simplest deals has probably 15 different times when it can go sideways. And you got to be able to navigate through that. And usually not just through the words, but just the general act of communication and thoroughness and professionalism is more often than not going to be what gets you there.
And take us inside some of those deals, because you talk to the regular sports fan, they think, oh, like we're Jets fans, we're dying for them to sell the team, right? So we're thinking, man, it's simple. So they put the team up for sale, they got a buyer, they write the check, and it's all over. But it's more complicated than that, right? I mean, what goes into like the beginning to end to get to the end point of these deals?
Well, the process itself is very complex. So to use your example, Woody Johnson decides tomorrow, I've had it with this NFL thing, and I'm going to see what can happen if I put the team up for sale. Well, he's got to make a decision initially. Do I want to do a negotiated deal, or do I want to do an auction scenario, right? A negotiated deal is better for a buyer because that allows you to get in the room with the seller, hammer out a deal at terms you're both happy with, keep it out of the press, and usually it truncates the process significantly. However, that's not always the best way for the seller to do it. As you've seen with most of these types of transactions, the seller wants to be in an auction environment because they want crazy money just jumping over crazy money to get in. Most people know the LA Clippers deal. That was like infamous for that.
Yes.
People saying it's worth $1 billion or $1.5 billion, and people are like, oh, it's not worth that. And then Steve Ballmer comes in and says $2 billion, and it's like, okay, we're done. Everybody can go home. And so a seller loves that. That's what the seller wants. That's what the league wants. And guess what? That's what the other team owners want, because that rising tide lifts all boats. When a team establishes a new bar with valuation, even if it's not the highest valued team, even if it's a lower market team, if that valuation comes in higher than expected, all valuations will typically follow and be reassessed higher than previously expected. So everybody's rooting for the highest possible price. Back to that scenario. So he decides, do I want to negotiate a deal, or do I want an auction environment? Okay, let's say he wants an auction environment. Now he's got to hire a firm to run the process. Okay, so somebody's got to be out front, be the middleman, not just in communicating to other potential buyers and their teams, but also potentially to the league, to the press. They have to leak a lot of misinformation. That seems to be a regular thing throughout all of these deals. We were pretty heavily involved in the Marlins deal back in 2017, and we had a group that was vying. They finished second or third. I don't even know anymore. But we were watching stuff that came out in the newspaper on a daily basis, and I'm like, that's not true. No, it's almost like, I mean, that was like fake news before fake news. And, so you need to surround yourself with the team, right? So you need an investment banking firm usually to run the process for you and to manage the communication and the auction. So for instance, you have to be able to cultivate, these offers and get people higher and higher. So, you'll generally through a first round get a certain amount of bids. You'll go back to all of them and say that's not enough. And then you'll encourage them to come back with their best and final at a certain point in time. And ultimately, you want to get, almost always, you will get more than previous expected. Even with the Mets, for all the posturing back and forth, wherever they ended up at 2.4, 2.5, that's probably around the, kind of like the ceiling of what they could have possibly hoped for.
Yeah.
So, but the process is, even once you agree to terms, now you have a buyer that's got to get through a purchase agreement, which is a very elaborate, and that's another place where there's a million minefields. You have to get approved by Major League Baseball. And these are the things you're hearing about with Steve Cohen right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
First get approved by the owners, then he's got to get approved by Major League Baseball. It's no secret that he has some, what we would say, hair on his resume with respect to some previous, sanctions, I believe with the SEC. But that's not necessarily a disqualifier. There's certain things that are definitely disqualifiers in baseball. Obviously, gambling interests is one. Cannabis interests is a disqualifier at this point. And, and obviously certain reputational things. If they do a background check, paying fines to the SEC is not on the same level as somebody who ran a Ponzi scheme. Okay? So,
Yes.
But as you guys know.
Yes.
Yeah. very well, I very well know that. And it's just crazy. What are the Mets ownership is just surrounded by all these, shaky little deals, floating around. But I guess that's the pain of being a Mets fan. And you mentioned
the Islanders a number of years ago. We had a guy who his team because he faxed an offer in and he had no money. And it's like, how did that happen?
So I lost my. Oh yeah, you mentioned the negotiated deal, then the auction deal, and Steve Cohen pretty much negotiated the deal, and then they pulled out, and then they put it up for the auction. It was just that's
exactly right. He had it. Here's what went wrong in my humble opinion. Somebody violated the number one cardinal rule, and they said it was in the bag. And I always tell even my own sons, never say something's in the bag because that's the surest way to blow it up. So he probably had almost all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and then it went sideways, obviously. And then he was out. Then you read that they hated him. They didn't want to do business with him, which is code word for he hasn't offered us enough money yet. And I think when he finally came back with a number that, obviously was the highest number and a number they could live with, he all of a sudden wasn't so hard to work with.
Yeah, I mean, we all, it was no secret that he was going to end up being the winner, like you said. But I'm not saying it was in the bag, but it was. But I love that you put that on the on the questionnaire here. Don't say it's in the bag. I say don't count your chickens before they hatch.
I forgot to put that on the questionnaire. I totally forgot.
Because when we asked about pregame rituals and superstitious things,
that's right.
You never say the outcome is in the bag. That is a sure way to blow the game. And I completely agree. And you know what? Obviously you were talking about Brady and you hated him, and that we were talking about Atlanta before and they can't hold the lead. I had my wife saying, haha, Brady's going to lose at halftime in that game. I'm like, don't say that.
I'll tell you a quick funny story, and I could say this now because the son I'm going to talk about is 26, and I can no longer have him taken away from me. We were watching an NCAA tournament game. I don't know, it's got to be 15 years ago, March Madness, and there was a game I was highly interested in, and he was into it too, and then he said it was in the bag, and he didn't even say it to poke me. He just said it because he felt it. Yeah. As he was going into the bathroom, and there was about 3 minutes left in the game, which, as you know, in basketball could be an hour. So he literally says it's in the bag. He goes into the bathroom. He was not allowed to come out of the bathroom until the game was over. I locked him in there. I said, no, you're not coming out. I'm going to let you make another comment. And so had this gotten, if we were back in the days of texting and Twitter, and this was disclosed, I would have had DCF probably at my door. Either taking him away or taking me away in handcuffs. I don't know. But he lived it out, and he learned his lesson.
It's amazing how sports unites us all, man. I mean, that's an incredible story. Bob, we last week we had a couple of guys on. They started this thing called Book It Sports, where they do sports betting and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to one of the podcasts you were talking about how sports betting is going to increase the valuation of these teams.
Yep.
I mean, how big of a role do you see sports betting taking shape in the next 2, 3, 4 years when it comes to pro sports and these teams being involved in that?
Well, it's a two-part question. I don't know that there's going to be necessarily significantly more sports betting because, as you guys know, it's been around forever, and people enjoy wagering on sports. They've always wagered on sports, and they always will wager on sports. So that's not the part that's going to change. What will change is now, for the first time, teams and leagues can now benefit via revenue streams from sports betting. And sports betting is a multi-billion-dollar platform. I think when it's available legally, a lot of the illegal or offshore accounts will definitely move over. We'll put aside the taxation for a second. But obviously, leagues and teams will now strike deals with whether it's a betting platform, or it could even be the municipality, that's allowing you to bet at, I think in New Jersey, right? They let you bet through the, the racetrack and things like that. And these are all enormous revenue streams that never existed before. But here's where it really manifests. Because now you have all these people betting, and now you can capture how many people are betting, you could make the case for enhanced media rights, right? Because the more people that are betting, more eyeballs that'll be on this, on the screens or watching on their phones or whatever platform or content delivery, they have their hands on. And I think that's where it really will show the most growth, is that the betting will drive the eyeballs. The eyeballs will drive the media rights, and the media rights, which have always been underpinning valuations, which is why sports values just keep going up. People say, well, the media rights going to start tapering. Are they going to plateau? Are they going to dip? Well, not if sports betting becomes legal in all the states. I think that'll have the opposite effect. And think about it, I would think about 18 states have legalized sports betting as of today. Now, if you look at what happened with 2020 with COVID, and every state has basically gotten hammered economically. So now when they all sit there and they start budgeting for next year and they say, okay, now how are we going to start making up some of these shortfalls? Where are we going to make money? And now they sit there where they might have previously not considered legalizing sports betting. I think almost all of them will say, listen, we need to capture all the revenue streams we can. And but that's through the municipality. But then there's a whole nother level of it, like I said, through the teams, through the leagues, or even through the venues. There's certain venues like in DC where, similar to how it is overseas, you could bet in the arena. I mean, so everybody's got their.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I didn't know that. So as far as Whitecap Sports goes, where do you see your guys going now, right? So you're 5 years into it. Tell us where you're taking the firm in the next 7, 10, 12 years, down the road. Do you see yourself being a player in these bigger deals as you grow?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of like where we are. I always say, like, the deals we do, we're not really doing $2-3 billion deals, but the deals we do are like between $1 million and $300 million. And that's a great space to be, because if you take your large investment banks, your Goldman Sachs, and I can start rattling off a couple of them, they don't even want to be in our space. It's like chump change to them, right? So we don't have to fight them off, right? And you take the very small firms, and a lot of them aren't even like, there's people that try to do this. They'll put a shingle outside their door and they're like, oh, I find people for sports teams, but it's a very regulated industry. You really can't do it unless you're securities licensed. And a lot of the smaller firms are trying to tiptoe through raindrops and not get caught. So, we're in a perfect place where we're all licensed to do what we do, and we're not really butting heads with the bigger firms. I don't mind bringing an investor to a large deal, to a full acquisition, but I kind of like where we are. Will we stumble across something larger 5 years, 7 years, 10 years from now? Probably. If we don't, we could be really prosperous where we are. And I think if we grow, it'll just be as far as just doing more of the deals we're doing, as opposed to necessarily doing larger deals. Okay. So right now we're doing kind of what we have the bandwidth to do, which is substantial. I mean, we're working on opportunities right now in Major League Baseball, in 2 in the NBA, overseas soccer, MLS, and minor league baseball. So it's, we have a lot on our plate right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to know that, it could be between $1 million and $300 million. That puts it more in my wheelhouse. A little bit more. Hey, if the Jets keep up the trajectory they're at, hey, I might be able to get them at a bargain in a few years.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I mean, it'd be interesting. Hey, you know what? It's like this with the Knicks too. I don't know if you guys are Knicks fans.
Oh, die hard.
And they have a well-capitalized owner, right? I mean, not that he doesn't have the money, but he just can't seem to figure out how to put the pieces together. And, I give Dolan a little more credit. He doesn't get much from anybody, but I do see them trying every year. They just can't figure it out, right?
Yeah.
The Phil Jackson thing, that was a big investment, right? I mean, they tried to make it work through him. And they did try to make a run at some of the big free agents, a couple of years ago when LeBron was a free agent and Durant, and they got spurned, and because they don't have a stable situation. But they are trying. It's not like because they don't want to spend the money. Right. The Jets, I just don't see from when as a fan, I don't see the passion from the ownership. I don't see them, wringing their hands trying to like a Jerry Jones. You could see he's like physically ill when that team is getting beat, right? You see him in the owner's box, and like the poor guy, like even if you don't like the Cowboys, you're like, that guy's like living and dying with these results.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you want from an owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We want them to fire the guy they have in charge of this team that they should have never hired in the first place. And we've been talking about it for 7 weeks now.
It's hard in football. It's hard in football because you need to replace so many pieces sometimes, and you can't just have one good draft and go from a loser to a winner like you can in basketball.
Right.
It's a lot harder, a lot longer process in football, unfortunately.
Yeah. But Gates just has to go. That's my opinion.
I didn't understand the hire in the beginning. I haven't seen anything to excite me. I mean, there's probably a lot of things wrong besides the coach, for sure.
Yeah.
But
don't get me wrong. There's a lot wrong, but that's where it all started. Like you can't even get anywhere when you start off on the wrong foot like that.
Isn't he an offensive genius? Somebody called him an offensive
genius.
Christopher
Johnson. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
I don't.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's tough. As a fan, it's tough to watch. You mean, now you run into the part where you don't know if you should even root for them to win. I mean, which is counterintuitive, but you want that number one pick, and then now you read every day you might not come out of school, and you're like, great, this will be Peyton Manning part 2.
Ah, God. I'm gonna have an ulcer when you keep talking like this, Bob. It's killing me, man.
Yeah.
That's why my new favorite team is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
They're exciting. They're an exciting team. Come over to the Buccaneers. Come watch the Buccaneers.
Yeah, me and Mike got to go to Florida.
Yes.
Florida's great. I love it down here. Highly recommend it.
We got to make trips everywhere. I mean, let's be real.
When we go down there,
we're bringing the fan experience on the road. Obviously when things open up a little bit more, we're just gonna take this cross country.
I'm telling you, come down to Florida, you wouldn't even know that COVID existed. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying you pretty much do anything down here except go to a sporting event or a concert. But everything's pretty much stage 3 or 4. I don't know, whatever I was up in New York a couple weeks ago, and I was shocked at the stark difference between there and here.
Yeah, it's night and day. Yeah, Bob, I wanted to ask you one final thing. You said you were part of minor league baseball. Obviously, Major League Baseball, they're going to go from 160 teams, I think, to 121 in minor league baseball. Do you see that? Do you see your business increasing now with people maybe selling their stakes in these teams? I mean, is that going to be a big boost for you?
I don't know. That remains to be seen. It'll definitely. There's always going to be activity. I think what'll happen is the teams that are left, those 120 that are left, I don't see them trying to sell. I think those teams' values will go up a little bit because there'll be a little more scarcity, and they'll have longer affiliation agreements. Typically, those affiliation agreements have been 2-3 years, and then it's like a little bit of musical chairs. That's why you see a team as a Blue Jays affiliate, then a couple of years later, you're like, wait, and then now they're a Twins affiliate. Now they're going to start getting 10-year affiliations in place, which I think will give some stability to the organization. And 120 versus 160 creates more scarcity. So those 120, those values will go up. If an owner wants to sell, this would be a good time because, again, enhanced value. However, I think the ones that are kind of left behind, they could be looking for an exit strategy because, a single A, or let's just say a short season A team in baseball would probably a year or two ago traded around $10 million. An affiliated team. Now, if they are no longer affiliated and they're left to join an independent league or a summer collegiate league, their value might drop to $2 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I could see some action there for sure.
Wow. It's amazing. I was looking into that as well. New York is getting a lot of minor league play with the Frontier League and stuff. They're signing them on as well.
We were involved in that one, the Boulders.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And the Boulders are where?
Rockland
County. Nice. Do they know who they're going to? Mets, Yankees, or somewhere else?
No, well, they're in the Frontier League, so that's an independent league. So they won't have an affiliation at the major league level at this time. Now, there are rumors that a couple of independent teams will be, to use a soccer term, promoted and have affiliations, but I have not heard Rockland in that conversation. I've heard St. Paul, and I've heard, what's the team in Texas? Sugarland.
Oh, that's outside of Houston. That's right. That's outside of Houston.
Yeah, it's one of the Texas teams. I think what they're going to do is they're going to lop off 42 affiliated teams, mostly rookie and short season and then they're going to bring 2 independent teams into the fold. But Rockland, I would think they would be a layup, except of their location and their proximity to some of the other teams that are already affiliated that have territory protections, like Brooklyn, or even the Mets and Yankees for that matter.
Oh, I just had somebody comment, the Cyclones are moving to Double-A.
Yeah, well, they could. I mean, that's a really successful franchise. They draw really well.
They do.
They draw well. They're very profitable, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, they definitely could sustain themselves that way. I tell you, the most successful independent team is in your backyard in the country, and that's the Ducks in Long Island.
Yeah, no, they are. They're fun to watch. I mean, it's obviously a great family day to go to Ducks games. It's great. I mean, and sometimes they win. It's better than the Mets do.
Yeah, well, to put it in perspective, because there's outliers in all of these leagues. But I would say the average independent professional team would sell in the, let's say, $2 to $3 million range, including in the Atlantic League where the Ducks play. Except if the Ducks were for sale tomorrow, they would sell well in excess of $30 million.
Wow.
That's
okay. All right. Well, I guess I'm gonna. I guess I have to buy the Bridgeport Bluefish then.
I think you're a little late for that. I think they've. I think they shut it down over there.
Oh, well, then there we go. I can get it at dirt cheap there. Well, Bob, thank you very much for
Bob.
On. We'll let you get back to watching the rest of this World Series game. Hopefully, your Rays, for your sake, go and force the Game 7. I mean, it's still 1-0, right?
Yeah, still win. Yeah,
still 1-0. So let's see what happens. But regardless, it's been a hell of a series.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's not going to stop. Tampa Bay is still rising with the Bucks over there.
Hey, if we win tonight, anything can happen in Game 7, right?
Yeah. Hey, LA Chargers, Tampa Bay Bucks Super Bowl. I mean, with this LA Tampa Bay trend.
Yeah, I don't know about the Chargers. You think they're better than the Rams? And the Rams
the Rams are way better. Yeah, but Bob, thank you.
The Chargers and the Rams and the Bucks can't play in the Super Bowl. So
true. Bob, thank you for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. Finally for me, you had in one of your podcasts, you said you like to mentor people. So if you can mentor us and help us in our journey with playing the field and the podcast,
absolutely,
greatly appreciate the advice.
All right. Well, it's great talking to you guys. Stay in touch.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Yes. Have a great night. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
That was awesome, man.
He's a great guy.
Great guy. You see, here you get it all, ladies and gentlemen. The ins and outs of dealing with pro teams and how these sales go through and all that. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, you think it's somebody just writes a check and that's it, but there's more to it than that. But it's funny how you were saying this stuff. Like, remember we were talking about the Cohen deal, A-Rod doing this. At the end of the day, it's all about the money. They didn't have the money. I mean, that's what it was.
Yeah. And now I know it's $30 million to buy the Ducks. So
yeah, well,
there goes that pipe dream.
Yeah, well, listen, if you could sell playing the field for $100 million, right? After taxes, you walk away with 50.
Yeah,
well, you put 20 away to invest. Tell Bob, listen, I want to invest 20 million, just whatever, and then take the rest and just listen. You buy the Ducks and that's it.
Yeah. Well, in due time.
Yeah.
All right, so let's hit up some of these games from week 7 because it was obviously. I mean, I touched on the Chargers, my new favorite team. Herbert's just a beast.
He's rookie of the year. Him and Burrow, rookies of the year right now.
Oh my goodness, this guy was just flinging it. I mean, what did he have? 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then a rushing touchdown.
347 and 3 TDs.
He just
incredible.
I mean, he won me a fantasy
Hey, there you go.
Game. So that was a nice little bonus for me. But yeah, he finally got his first win, so I'm glad to see that.
How about this? The Bengals and the Browns, man.
That was some game.
Joe Burrow throws for 406 and 3 TDs. I mean, you know what's funny? Herbert and Burrow, they're what, 7 games in? They're like, it looks like they've been there for 10 years, man. I mean, they don't get scared. They don't get rattled. They just drop back. Unlike our quarterback, he doesn't, they're just throwing rockets all over the place. It's incredible.
Yeah. And then, if Cincinnati had any semblance of a pass rush, you wouldn't have Baker running down the field time and time again with no Odell Beckham, no Nick Chubb, but I mean, Baker, obviously he came to play, but Cincinnati's got to get a little bit better in pressuring the quarterback. I mean, can't give somebody limitless time. So I mean, I was really hoping that the Bengals were going to be able to pull that one out, but Joe Burrow's putting up some numbers, man. I mean, that's you can't say that he's not doing that. He can't play defense too. So, he's doing what he got signed for, and Cincinnati fans should be very excited for the years to come. You just gotta build a team around him. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, but it's incredible what him and Herbert have done. I mean, it's just like I said, they don't look scared. They play tough, and I thought they were going to win that game. Man, Baker Mayfield comes down and throws a touchdown at the end there. We didn't even get into the fact that Odell Beckham Jr. tears his ACL and is out for a year. That's a second major injury he's had.
I mentioned it in the beginning.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Briefly, because obviously that was bigger news. But yeah, I mean, Odell Beckham's done. He'll have parties with. Well, we're not even going to go back into.
No, we won't get into that.
To do. But
the Steelers 6-0. They beat the Titans 27-24.
It got a little dicey there for a second. It did. But yeah, the Steelers pulled it out. But a surprising game was the Cardinals beating the Seahawks.
That was a real good game, man. This guy, Kyler.
Unbelievable. The offensive showing by both sides was just unbelievable. I mean, I wouldn't say unbelievable because you could see it coming from either one of them at any time, but that was just it was insane. Like back and forth. And I mean, the Cardinals actually came back from a little bit down in that one to actually.
But that game had the play of the year with DK Metcalf chasing down Budda Baker. I mean, literally chased him down from the goal line, man. I mean, I don't know how he didn't score there. It was incredible.
He ran like 120 yards or something.
Yeah.
And he was 20, what was it, like 23 miles an hour or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, he was flying down the field.
The dude's a freak of nature. I mean, the dude's built like I mean, they say
he's like a god. I mean, he's chiseled. He's got like 2% body fat,
and he's got the wheels too on top of it all. And oh my god, I mean, it just people give up too easy, and this guy goes down all the way to what?
That's an effort play, man.
Like 7.
Yeah, and he was drafted in the second.
All effort.
And he was drafted in the second round, right? I think he went in the second round of last year's draft, and it might have been the second or third round. But this guy, he's becoming one of the top receivers in the league, man. I mean, he's a big time player.
It's amazing that DK Metcalf's got 20. He had 20 something yards receiving that game. Tyler Lockett's sitting there with 203 touchdowns, and DK Metcalf still gets player of the game.
Hey, listen, man, when you chase down a guy like that, I mean, that's just incredible.
But it's just because of how it all played out. It's just it's just amazing. But that was amazing effort. Amazing effort cannot be said for Cam Newton, though.
Yeah, what happened to him, man? He's kind of just fallen off there, right? Like, he was first few games. Now he's like...
I thought he was pretty good for the first few games. I agree with you. And, oh, my goodness, Jimmy Grapes back in Foxborough.
Yeah.
And, pretty much showing Belichick, maybe you shouldn't have traded me. But I mean, Jimmy Grapes isn't anything to write home about either.
No, I mean, listen, I could see the
offense, but Cam, it's just, and Belichick said that he's going to go back to Cam this next week.
Oh, is he okay? Yeah.
Yeah, he's giving him another chance. Oh no, the Jets play the Chiefs this week. I think they play the Patriots the next week.
Yeah.
I wonder who wins that game. No,
yeah.
Patriots.
Well, hey, it's funny. Some people were talking about saying that the Jets the Jets' only shot at winning a game is this Patriot game. I'm like, you must be out of your mind. I mean, they could start Jason Stidham and still win that game. Jets aren't beating that team. Jets aren't beating anybody. I don't know what they're talking about. The question for the Jets is real simple now. Obviously, you're going to play for the number 1 pick. Trevor Lawrence, in an interview today, said, there's a lot of things in motion. He might, he still might go back. I don't see him going back at this point because I just don't think him going back to another year and risking that is a smart play. But, does he pull a power play and try to get out of that number 1 pick? So the Jets
got name, image, likeness in play now. So, he might be able to monetize a little bit next year. But, I mean, come on, let's be real. If you're the number 1 pick, you're monetizing a hell of a lot more. So,
yeah, that's $30 million that he's walking away from. But, But the question for the Jets now is, does Gase survive? I mean, if they go 0-9 to the bye, I mean, do you just say, you know what, let's just cut the cord? Because he looks like a defeated man. I mean, you watch these press conferences.
Do you think Gase has any chance of surviving? I mean, I don't care if it's in mid-season, but at the end of the season, like, how do you stick with him?
Hey, listen, what Bob just say? He's like, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes in that building. So, I mean, if he has some backers and people say, well, he didn't have this, that, and the other. I mean, I don't know how he survives, but I want to see if he survives the bye week. If they go 0-9 and they look bad, who knows, man? They just cut the cord and be done with it.
Please
do the guy a favor, man. Just do him a favor. Get rid of him.
Just get rid of him. Oh, what was that? What happened there? But I mean, if they're gonna suck that bad, we might as well have fun. Just in that misery that is the New York Jets season, and there's no surprise that JETS stands for just end the season, and it's screaming evident in the year 2020. I will have to say. Any other games that I told you the Raiders were going to cover the 4 points they were getting.
That you did.
Boy, was I wrong on that.
That you did.
But
you were a little off there.
After we got off on Thursday, though, I saw in the news that they had like their whole offensive line out because of COVID, and I didn't realize that. I would have went the other way. But I said it on the air, and that has to stick. But any other games that I guess we have to talk about the Cowgirls.
Oh yeah, I mean, what happened to Andy Dalton, man? I mean, the poor guy almost got killed on that play. I mean, that's terrible. But the beating they got in this game, I mean, Mike McCarthy, what's going on over there?
Aside from that beating,
it was just bad, man. I mean,
CeeDee Lamb, nothing. Michael Gallup, nothing.
No,
they couldn't have any offense. They couldn't produce any offense.
And their defense isn't that much better. And what's the funny thing about all that? In that division, if they pull out a couple wins, they still might win it. That's how bad.
In that division, the Giants could still win it.
Yeah. That's how bad
the Giants are only 2 games out.
Yeah. I mean,
Washington took that win. So is Washington in first place now? I think so, right?
I'll tell you right now. Right now, it's the Eagles are 2-4. Washington and the Cowboys are 1 game back at 2-5, and the Giants are 1-6.
Oh, they have 1 extra loss. That's why.
And a shout out to Daniel Jones for not hurting himself.
Because the Eagles have that tie,
right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. But all right. I think Washington has a valid chance to actually.
Well, they got that defensive line, man. They can just Chase Young and all those guys.
The Eagles need to get healthy, and if they can get healthy, then they'll win it with 6 games.
In that division, 6-10 might get you a playoff berth. That's how bad that is.
It's pathetic, ain't it?
That's embarrassing.
And you know what's even more pathetic? The Jets couldn't even sniff 6-10.
No. And you know what's getting back to the Jets real quick? They got some players. Like Quinton Williams is starting to play real well.
No, they
Denzel Mims look good.
Well, you know what? Let's just stick to the rookies. Play
them all. Ashton Davis, play them all.
I mean, come on. Do we really need to see Frank Gore continue running the ball? I mean, the guy is 50. His son's going to be meeting him in the NFL in a year. So no, just let the young kids play because it's a lost season. You might as well see what you got. I guess real quick before we sign off, as we're going a little bit over here.
We had two major signings too. We had two signings in the NFL this week.
Oh yes,
Dez Bryant with the Ravens.
You mentioned Antonio Brown, but yeah, Antonio Brown to the Buccaneers, and he will be eligible to play in Week 9 after he passes his tests and clears his suspension. And then Dez Bryant signing with the Baltimore Ravens to give Lamar Jackson a well-needed weapon in that offense.
You know what?
Lamar Jackson going to throw the ball though? I don't know.
That's the thing. I don't know that it's the weapon. I think does he finally break through that ceiling and be able to attack down the field? You know, if they fall behind or kind of expand that offense.
Well, they're going to use Dez for a red zone threat, I'm sure, is going to be his primary focus because right now it's just Mark Andrews is his main red zone threat.
Right.
And to add Dez Bryant onto there, it certainly expands that playbook and helps them be more of an explosive offense.
Yeah.
But, it's just, it's so many mouths to feed with the running game there. It's just, it's actually – I have Lamar Jackson in fantasy, and I'm just like kind of sick of watching it at this point. It's like, he's either going to run it or 3 other running backs are going to run it, and then maybe there's a chance he throws in a touchdown.
It's time you play Herbert.
Oh yeah, Herbert.
It's time.
Herbert is staying on. I mean, I'm going to still play matchups, but Herbert put up 55 points for me last week, and he put up 45 the week before that. He's got the Jets coming up in a couple of weeks, so I can't even wait for that game. That's going to be a lot of fun there.
That's a 50-pointer right there. Yeah.
If only. I mean, he put up 55 against Jacksonville, so Jets. He might be able to break that 60 mark. But yeah, Dez Bryant back in the league, and Antonio Brown. He's been quiet. So let's see what happens. Obviously, Tom Brady vouched for him, and he was a major player in getting Antonio Brown to come to Tampa Bay. So, and what's going to happen with the Mike Evans? Because the guy barely gets looked at, he barely gets targeted. Godwin's being looked at more. Scotty Miller is being looked at more.
Let me ask you this: is Mike Evans he just signed a big contract with them, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
man. If the Jets can find a way to make a trade for that guy, that's a guy. That's a number one right there. You give Sam some options with that. Now, or if you're gonna draft Trevor Lawrence, maybe Denzel Mims.
Yeah, but he's also he's injured a lot. He's honestly, I think he gets an offensive pass interference almost every game.
But he makes some big plays, man. When he was with Jameis, he was making big plays.
Yeah, you are right, but I mean, are they going to utilize it? I mean, so was Brashard Perriman. What might I add?
Yeah, but
was Brashard Perriman making big plays with Jameis last year?
Yeah, but that was towards the end of the season, and he had nobody else. I mean, Jameis had nobody. I mean,
we have Brashard Perriman. All right, he's not even a twinkle of what he was in the end of the season last year. Come on.
All right. God, I mean, you just know how to.
That's just where players go to die. All right.
Yeah. All right. Fine. Thanks, Mike. And with that being said,
I'm just keeping it real. Well, real quick, Atlanta getting 2.5 against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina.
Carolina's winning that game. Atlanta's Mets.
Flat out, and by less than a field goal. They're favored by. That's an easy Carolina take there, and we will see you on Thursday during that game. The World Series will be over, regardless of what happens tonight. The World Series will be over Thursday when we meet again, and we have another great guest in store for you. And until then, have a good night, everybody. And we will sign off with a word from our presenting sponsor. Rick, you want to say goodbye?
Yeah, good night, everybody. We'll see you Thursday night. Thanks for tuning in. Again, thanks to our guest, Bob Malandro from Whitecap Sports, for that insight. And we look forward to seeing everybody Thursday night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Do you want to meet other sports enthusiasts like yourself? Playing the field can help you connect with people who love sports as much as you do. For friendship or romance. You can showcase up to 5 of your favorite teams on your profile trading card to make it easier to find fellow sports fans. Now you can talk about sports, go to the games, or play sports with others who share your interests. Find out more at Play the Field now.